with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And during this video we're going to talk about Putin. These days he visited the capital of Republic of Belarus, the city of Minsk, where he made lots of very interesting statements about Ukraine, about the West, and about the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. Furthermore, during this video we're going to discuss massive missile strikes that took place during the previous 24 hours. The Russians attacked the city of Kharkiv, the Russians attacked the city of Odessa, and many other places were bombed by the Russians. And of course, during this video we're going to discuss the situation on the ground, because the Russians, according to information we have during the previous 12 hours, managed to improve their position significantly. The source reported that the settlement of Zirka is about to be taken by the Russians completely. So let's start, and let's begin with the Republic of Belarus and with the statements that were made by the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. During the previous 12 hours, he stated that Russia and Ukrainian draft proposals are diametrically opposed, but talks continue to find common ground. Prisoner exchange are important and help lay the groundwork for substantive talks between Russia and Ukraine. Russia is prepared to return another 3,000 bodies of fallen Ukrainian soldiers, in addition to 6,000 already handed over. Russia is ready for a new round of talks with Kiev on the time and location needs to be agreed. Russia is ready to hold the next round of talks with Kiev in Istanbul and thanks Erdogan for facilitating the process. So if Putin begins talking about this negotiation process, most likely in the very near future, the talks will take place on the territory of Istanbul. Furthermore, during these visits, the President of the Russian Federation made lots of very interesting statements about the President of the United States of America. Together, Russia and the United States can build a safer, more prosperous world. Dialogue with President Trump arcs a new chapter for US-Russian relations and global security. Furthermore, President Putin highlights good coordination on diplomatic and economic tracks with President Trump's team. Trump reacted by saying that Putin's words were very nice, praising the US effort in Ukraine and the Middle East. So as you can see, despite the situation in Ukraine and the world, we see that Russia and the United States of America are trying to normalize relations. Now let's talk about Ukraine. And during the previous 12 hours, the Russians attacked several cities in the southern part of Ukraine. According to information we have, as a result of Iskander strike, the Russians destroyed a temporary deployment point of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of Belgorod-Dnistrovsky. The source reported that Ukrainians were using this building to produce drones. And as you can see, as a result of Iskander strike, the entire building was completely destroyed, and we can see a very heavy explosion. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians attacked the city of Odessa with a significant number of drones of Geran type. The sources on the ground reported that there were at least 10 explosions recorded during the previous night. So something big and something huge was destroyed. The Ukrainians are saying that several Russian drones attacked civilian area and buildings. But I would like to remind you that according to information we have, starting of 2025, some Ukrainian volunteers moved the production of drones to the civilian area and to these residential buildings. So maybe this is exactly the targets that the Russians were attacking. Now let's talk about the northeastern part of the Kharkiv region. Today we got another Iskander strike, and this is another video where we can see how the Russians, as a result of reconnaissance operation, managed to discover another industrial facility that Ukrainians were using to produce drones. And as a result of Iskander strike, the Russians managed to damage this factory. It's very difficult to understand the exact damage that the Russians managed to deal, but the sources are saying that at least one barrack was completely destroyed. Anyway, we will not be able to understand the real damage that the Russians managed to deal. Another important video we got from the southeastern part of the city of Kharkiv itself. Very interesting video that was published by the Russian sources by the Group of Forces North, and in this video we can see how a Russian drone was flying about the northeastern part of the city of Kharkiv above the industrial zone. Of course, the quality of the video is not so good. We see that Ukrainians were trying to jam the Russian drone with the purpose to bring the drone down, but we see that the Russian drone saved its possibility to fly above and to continue reconnaissance operation. Later, the Russian sources added that this Russian drone attacked at the end Ukrainian facility and dealt some damage. So the importance of this video is the distance that regular drones, not the fiber optic drones, but regular drones, can move through. So, for example, the distance between the territories that are under complete Russian control to the north of the city of Kharkiv and to this industrial zone is around 35 kilometers. But most likely the drones were launched much further from the northern direction, maybe even from somewhere along the border with the Belgorod. So, which means that the Russians have possibilities, and the sources are saying that the Russians are going to intensify their reconnaissance operations above the city of Kharkiv in the very near future. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. The Russians continue their offensive operation, and currently there are very heavy clashes in the northern Sumy area. According to information we have, during the previous night, the Ukrainians made another attempt to attack the Kursk region, and with these purposes the Ukrainians used units of 425th Storm or 225th separate regiment of the armored forces of Ukraine. They tried to attack in the direction of the settlement of Novoput, but they were discovered along the border and destroyed with Russian FPV drones. As for the Sumy direction itself, during the previous night we got small changes in the northern part of Andreevka. This video was published by the Ukrainian sources, and in this video we can see how Russians were fighting with Ukrainians in the most northern part of the settlement. So this episode took place exactly in this area. The Russians were trying to establish complete control over this small building, and most likely the Russians managed to achieve this, but the Russians suffered losses. So as for now, we see that there are very heavy clashes for the settlement of Andreevka. I would like to remind you that several days ago, the Ukrainians, before the beginning of the NATO summit, the Ukrainians counterattacked in this area and restored control over this village. And now the Russians are trying to recapture this village once again with the purpose to stabilize the situation and probably to move down in the southern direction. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupiansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received very interesting video from the forest to the northeast of the city of Kupiansk itself. So this is the video I'm talking about, and in this video we can see how Ukrainians attacked the bridge in this area, the railway bridge, and as you can see, this railway bridge was mined by somebody, either by the Russians or by the Ukrainians, and as a result of drone attack, the mines detonated, and then we can see this huge explosion, and most likely this bridge was destroyed. As for now, it's very difficult to understand who controlled this territory. The only thing we know for sure that Ukrainians attacked the bridge, but telling the truth, it's very difficult to understand where exactly are the Russian positions and where exactly are the Ukrainian positions, because the author of this video stated that Ukrainians destroyed the bridge with the purpose to ruin Russian logistic and not to allow them to bring additional forces further in the south, to the south in the direction of the city of Kupiansk itself. But I would like to remind you that according to many mappers, so these territories used to be under complete Russian control. Then there was counterattack from Ukrainian side, and most of the mappers adjusted these territories back in Ukrainian favor. So as for now, it's unclear what is the exact status of this area. So we are waiting for additional geolocations, and based on this video, we're not going to adjust anything because we don't have enough of information to make let's say 100% sure conclusions. Anyway, the Russians continue attacking Ukrainian logistic in this area. This is another bridge that was attacked by the Russians with the use of Ha-38 missile. And this bridge this time was destroyed in the vicinity or damaged in the vicinity of Kupiansk-Kozlovoy to the southwest of the settlement. And this is not the first attack on this bridge. Probably just during these previous 6 months we got maybe 20 or 30 videos of how the Russians were attacking this territory with FAPs or with missiles of different calibers. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Konstantinovka direction, and according to information we have, the Russians for some reason decided to slow down their offensive. During the previous 24 hours we have just small adjustments to the south of the 0524 road in the vicinity of the settlement by the name of Katerinovka. So this is the situation by the end of the 27th of June, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 28th of June. The Russians secured several tree lines, and currently the distance between Russian positions and the road 0524, one of the let's say former logistic roads, is less than 1.5 kilometers. So we see that the Russians are tightening the news and continue advancing further in the direction of Katerinovka, Kliban-Byk, Sherbinovka and Novospaskaya. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the South Donetsk direction or in the Dnipropetrovsk area. The Russians this morning published very interesting video, and this video, as you can see, allowed us to adjust the map in the Russian favor. So this is the video we're talking about. In this video that was published by the Russian sources, we can see how Russian soldiers were attacking the village of Zarya. In this video we can see how Russian stormtroopers were moving from one building to another, from one street to another, from one construction to another, clearing every single building one by one. So the author of this video stated that the Russians have already entered the village of Zarya and Zirka, and according to the author of this video, most likely the village would be taken during the next several hours, not even days or not even weeks, just during the next several hours. Maybe the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information today. So in this video we can see Russian soldiers that were moving at least between these two buildings. So based on these geolocations, we have adjusted the northern part of Zirka and fields to the east in the direction of the villages of Yalta and Zaporozhye. Several pro-Russian resources added additional changes on the ground, and according to several pro-Russian resources, by the morning of the 28th of June of 2025, the entire area was secured by the Russians. We are talking about the territory between the village of Kamar and the village of Zirka. So now let's compare the changes. So for example, this is the situation by the end of the 27th of June of 2025. Yesterday we got first reports, by the way, confirmed by pro-Ukrainian sources, that the Russians answered the village of Zirka, and today we got additional changes on the ground that confirm Russian control over the northern part. So we expect that, yes, during the next 24-48 hours, this entire territory would be colored in Russian favor, and the Russians will continue offensive operation further. If you ask my opinion, currently I have a very big issue with the pockets to the north of Alexeyevka. So what exactly is going to happen here in the very near future is very difficult to understand, but the sources reported that the Russians, after the fall of the village of Yalta, are going to move further in the northern direction with the purpose to attack the village of Filia. So if somehow the Russians are able to secure this territory and to establish control over the village of Filia, this will lead to complete collapse of Ukrainian defense of in this pocket, and this is going to be a cauldron, another cauldron without any chances for Ukrainians to evacuate themselves without losses. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Zaporozhye direction. The third day in a row, the Russians continue their offensive, and during the previous nights, we got additional changes on the ground. According to several sources, the Russians, as a result of offensive, managed to secure completely the southern part of the village of Kamenska, and several pro-Russian resources colored everything to the south of the river of Yanchikrak. So now the southern is already under Russian control, and according to pro-Ukrainian sources from Deep State, the Russians launched another offensive operation, not like another roads of attack from the village of Stepova in the northern direction towards the village of Pavlovka. So the Russians are trying to improve their positions, and the pro-Ukrainian sources have already added huge gray zone, which means that the Russians managed to break through, and that the Russians are trying to dig in deeper right now with the purpose to stabilize the situation and prepare a foothold before further offensive in the northern direction. The Ukrainians continue their attempts to slow down the Russians with FPV drones, and today we got another video, this time published by the Ukrainian sources, how Ukrainians were trying to attack and to damage railways and trains with munition and arms that the Russians are moving in this area. In this video we can see how Ukrainian drone managed to discover another train with equipment, with arms, with something that can be useful for the Russians in their offensive, and the Ukrainians attack this train. So we see that the situation continues escalating, and most likely the Russians will intensify their attempts exactly in the Zaporozhye direction with the purpose to get as close as possible to the main railways that goes from the city of Zaporozhye in the eastern direction with the purpose to cut this logistic. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.